Hello everyone, my name is Vic Gupta and I'm the PC candidate here in Richmond Hill. You know, we know here in Ontario things have become harder and harder for families. When I go door to door and I meet families from the Russian community, they all tell me the same thing. That we're seeing government is spending more and more of their money, they're paying more and more in taxes and having a harder and harder time making ends meet. So as part of a Tim Hudak PC government, I want to bring some much needed change to Ontario and to Ontario families and to the folks in our riding in the Russian community in particular. We are going to bring change in three different ways. We're going to start by providing much needed tax relief. So we're going to take the HST off of your heating bill and your hydro bill, and we're also going to remove the debt retirement charge, another 5% tax on your hydro bill. That's going to provide you much needed tax relief on these growing hydro bills and energy bills that you're seeing at home. We're also going to reduce your income taxes by 5%. And, you know, lots of families in the Russian community tell me that they have one parent that might stay at home, and we have a new policy that we're going to be launching called income sharing. And I'm really proud of this policy because it's going to allow families who choose to have a parent at home or work part-time be able to share up to $50,000 of one spouse's income with the other. That will also provide additional tax relief. We are also going to bring change that guarantees the services that matter most to your family. You know, when I'm here in Richmond Hill, I've met many members of the Russian community, and they tell me that they hate when government is wasting money. And they tell me that government can't be all things to all people. We know that. And so we've decided to set some key priorities. Those priorities are health and education. We all want to know that the healthcare system will be there for our families when someone that we care about gets sick or needs care. But we're going to ensure that that is there for them by increasing spending in healthcare by $6 billion over the course of our 4 years. And we're going to increase spending in education by $2 billion. And how are we going to do that? We're going to do that by eliminating other waste and reducing expenditures by 2% in other areas of government outside of health and education. As I said, governments can't be all things to all people. We need to make choices and set priorities. A Tim Hudak government will do that the same way that you do that in your own household. Well, and you know, the McGuinty government has wasted so much of our money. You know, there's the e-health boondoggle. You may remember they lost $1 billion of our money. That could have gone into healthcare to help in our community. It could have gone into tax relief for hardworking families in the Russian community, in the Chinese community, in the Indian community, in all of our communities. You know, they gave consultants $2,500 a day contracts while families keep paying the bill. This kind of failed McGuinty policies have got to stop. You know, Dalton McGuinty and his Liberal Party have increased spending by 80% over the last 8 years, while government growth, the growth of the economy, has only grown by 10%. How can you grow government spending by 80% when the economy is only growing by 10%? You know, we couldn't run our businesses this way or our households. If we tried to run our households this way, the bank would take away the keys. So we definitely need some change. You know, the McGuinty government has again spent our money unwisely. You know, I'll give you one more recent example which says so much about the approach of Dalton McGuinty and the fact that he will say whatever he needs to say to get elected. You know, in 2003, when Dalton McGuinty ran to become the premier of our province, he told Ontario families that he would not raise their taxes. And what did he do? Not more than a week after the election, he said he had to raise taxes. That was a $3 billion tax increase. It was called the healthcare levy. Then in 2007, once again, he stood before the electorate at an election and said, I will not raise your taxes again. And what did he do? Once again, he raised our taxes. He introduced the HST, one of the single largest tax hikes in Ontario's history. And you know what he's done this time? He's telling us he's not going to raise our taxes. Surprise, surprise. But guess what? We know now that he will. Dalton McGuinty will introduce a carbon tax or an increase in the HST, or will just increase your income taxes. Most likely he'll find some sneaky way to introduce a tax that you've never heard of, that you just end up paying when you go and buy something new. And I want to share one other thing that I think is really revealing about the Dalton McGuinty government. Just a few days ago, Dalton McGuinty put the stop to a new power plant in Mississauga. This is going to cost taxpayers over $100 million. $100 million of your money down the drain. When did he do this? Just once again before an election was called. The community was opposed to it, has been opposed for 6 years, and he kept pushing forward. And if you ask him why, he'll say because he's listening to the community. I'd say because he's fishing for votes. And it's wrong, and we must put a stop to it. And you have that chance to put a stop to it right here in Richmond Hill. You know, the thing that I know that families in the Russian community are concerned about is jobs. And I want to talk a little bit about our jobs plan and the failed jobs plan of Dalton McGuinty. So a Tim Hudak government has a 5-point jobs plan. We're going to create 200,000 new apprenticeship program, jobs in the trades through an apprenticeship program. We're going to allow those that want to be an electrician or a plumber or a carpenter the chance to practice that trade right here in Ontario and not have to go to Alberta or Saskatchewan or somewhere else. Number 2, we're going to lower business taxes to 10%. We know that it's the private sector that creates long-lasting jobs. And so we're going to create a competitive tax environment for the private sector to create the kind of jobs that we need. And so we're going to lower business taxes to 10%. Dalton McGuinty has them at 12% and we're losing jobs. We're also going to reduce red tape and regulation for small business. We know that 90% of the new jobs that are created are by small businesses. I ran a small business myself. I know the regulatory and red tape burden that job creators, the small business community are facing. So we're going to reduce it by 30%. And in fact, we're so committed to reducing red tape by 30% that if we don't deliver on that promise by the end of our first term, after 4 years, we will all take a pay cut, a 10% pay cut, a money back guarantee that we will deliver on that promise. The other aspect of our jobs action plan is to provide that tax relief that we talked about. Tax relief that will give hard-working families in our community the freedom to spend again on your own priorities, not on Dalton McGuinty's priorities. That money, you will use it to buy something for your kids, new textbooks, a new toy perhaps, maybe invest it in your home for renovations, but that's going to go back into the economy and be spent and help us boost our economy and grow it. So that's our job creation plan. It's a plan that's reasonable, that's sensible. Dalton McGuinty's plan, on the other hand, is all about subsidizing jobs in the green energy field that will not be there tomorrow, that are low paying in the short term. Dalton McGuinty takes great pride in talking about his green energy plan. And of course, we're all supportive of green energy, sustainable and affordable energy, not energy at any cost. Dalton McGuinty's green energy plan is his only jobs plan, and it's a jobs plan that's going to create low-paying jobs that are here today, gone tomorrow. And the cost of those jobs is significant. They probably cost about $1 million a job. Well, that's not the kind of jobs we need. We don't need jobs that are only existing because they have huge government subsidies. Again, as I said earlier, when I talk to folks in the Russian community here in Richmond Hill, they tell me one of the things that they hate is government wasting their hard-earned tax dollars. And I'm telling you that the only way to put a stop to that is to put a stop to Dalton McGuinty and his taxing ways and his spending ways. And that's by electing Vic Gupta and a PC government right here in Richmond Hill. The last thing I want to talk to you about today is our plan to ensure that newcomers, like those in the Russian community that are here in Richmond Hill and in Ontario, have a chance to practice in the field that they were trained in, maybe back home. Well, we have a plan to ensure that if you get a job here in Ontario and you need some language training, perhaps in English or in French, we are going to provide a 10% wage subsidy to your employer so that you can get that language training. But you know what we're also going to do? We're also going to fast track and move and clean up this system of assessing your foreign credentials. You know, it's strange that the credentials that you have is what got you into this great country of ours and into Ontario. Once you get here, you seem to have to jump through every hurdle to try to practice in that profession. We think that's wrong, and we're going to do something about it. We're going to provide much more transparency and awareness to you and your family that when newcomers are applying to Ontario, to Canada, they understand how to get their equivalency, their credentials equivalent much, much quicker. Number two, we're going to work with those regulated professions, and we're going to have them look at their fees, because we know that the fees that they charge to make your credentials equivalent are sometimes way too costly. We want them to bring them down. And thirdly, and most importantly, we are going to ask the Fairness Commissioner, whose job it is to ensure that all Ontarians have equal access to a job, is looking all across North America at what are the best practices. Why is it that in New York State, a doctor or a lawyer can practice in their field much quicker than they can in Ontario? I know I have a friend, many friends, who have come to Ontario, they've been educated abroad, and they can't practice in their field. After 5 years, they're still struggling. I know doctors right here in our community of Richmond Hill. I know lawyers. Yet they can go to New York and they can get called to the New York bar, or they can practice medicine in New York State. We're going to demand that the Fairness Commissioner find out why that's happening and develop a plan to ensure that the best and the brightest that come to Ontario can stay right here in Ontario and work in their fields. You have my commitment on that. So friends, I want to say in conclusion, if you want real change, change that puts your family first, that gives you much needed tax relief so that you can spend on the things that matter to you and your family, not what matters to Dalton McGuinty. If you want change that guarantees the core services and sets key priorities like health and education while not trying to be all things to all people, and change that respects your taxpayer dollars and doesn't waste them, roots out that waste, looks for savings inside the government, and stops all the secret deals and the picking of winners and losers in government. If that's the kind of change you want, then you must consider supporting Vic Gupta, Tim Hudak, and a PC government. We will bring that change. We're the only ones that can do it. Dalton McGuinty can't do it. He won't do it. We will, we can, and we need your support to make that happen.